Hey friends, in tonight's homework, you are going to be looking at a division problem, but you're going to be doing it a little bit differently. Not in the way you solve it. You're still going to solve it using partial quotients, but when you get your answer, you're going to have to interpret the remainder. In other words, you're going to have to think about what to do with the remainder based on the question that's being asked. Typically, there are 4 things that you can do when interpreting a remainder, and I have them listed over here on the left of the screen. So sometimes, depending on what the question is asking, you might just need to drop it. In other words, you're going to ignore the remainder and only use the quotient as your answer. You'll do this when questions ask for full or whole items, or when the item cannot easily be split in real life. Other times, you might need to add. You get a remainder, and so you're going to have to add one more to your quotient. You'll do this if you need to make sure that everything fits and you can't leave anything out. Other questions might want you to just share the remainder. In other words, include it in your answer. This is typically what we've been doing in class. And of course, some questions might ask you to use the remainder. In fact, that would be your answer instead of the quotient. And you'll do this when the question asks you how much is left over, how much is left out, or how much is partially filled. So let's take a look at a couple of examples. Our first example says an industrial machine can make 22 crayons a day. If each box of crayons has 3 crayons in it, how many full boxes does the machine make a day? So right away, I know that I'm taking my 22 crayons and dividing them equally into groups of 3. So I have the problem 22 divided by 3. So I'm going to solve the problem using partial quotients, or really probably just your math facts. And we would see that our answer is 7 with a remainder of 1. Now we have to go back and interpret that remainder. So let's head on over to the question, and let's look at what it's asking. If each box of crayons has 3 crayons in it, how many full boxes does this machine make a day? We're looking for full boxes. In other words, we don't want any remainder, so we're going to drop it. And the answer to this question, how many full boxes, is only the quotient 7. We're not going to be using that remainder. So the answer is 7. Are you starting to pick it up? Let's look at another one. In this problem, the question says, a movie store had 55 movies they were putting on 9 shelves. If the owner wanted to make sure each shelf had the same number of movies, how many more movies would he need? So the first thing we're going to do is write our equation. I have 55 movies that I'm going to be dividing up into 9 shelves. So I have my equation of 55 divided by 9. Next, I'm going to solve it out using partial quotients, and I'm going to get a quotient of 6 with a remainder of 1. Now I need to go and interpret what the question is asking. And it's asking me, if each shelf had the same number of movies, how many more movies would he need? In other words, we want an equal number on every shelf. So I have to go and interpret my answer. Right away, I can see that my 6 means 6 movies on a shelf. But that 1 means that I have 1 movie that's left over. And that's not going to work because I can't just put it on a shelf and make one shelf have 7 movies with the rest 6. So instead, I'm going to need to get more movies to put on all those remaining shelves. In other words, I'm going to need to get 8 more movies. Because if I get 8 more movies, then 8 plus 1 equals 9 for those 9 shelves. And then I can have a total of 7 movies on every shelf, and that would be equal. So we're kind of doing a little bit of adding, but instead of adding 1 to the quotient, we're actually adding to our remainder. So how many more movies would he need? He would need 8 more movies. So that's a different way to interpret a remainder. Let's look at another problem. Pavan wanted to give each of his 6 friends an equal amount of candy. At the store, he bought 34 pieces total to give to them. How many extra pieces will he have? So again, we need to find our equation. Well, Pevin has 34 pieces, and he's going to divide them amongst his 6 friends. So we have the equation 34 divided by 6. Solve it using partial quotients, or for this one, probably your math facts, and we see that our answer is 5 with a remainder of 4. In other words, if I'm interpreting my answer, that means each of his friends will get 5 pieces of candy, and he'll have 4 pieces left over. Let's go back to the problem to figure out what they're asking. They're asking for, that should be, how many extra pieces will he have? How many extra pieces? So we're using it. We're just using the remainder. He's going to have 4 extra pieces. For this problem, we don't actually need to give our quotient. We're only using the remainder because it's talking about extra pieces. All right, let's look at the last example problem before you begin your homework. Fry's 5th grade class is going on a field trip to the zoo. They are taking charter buses that each hold 54 people. If there are 187 people going on the field trip, how many buses will they need to bring? So first thing we need is our equation. I have 187 people that I have to put into buses of 54 groups. So in other words, I'm going to have 187 divided by 54. When I solve that out using partial quotients, I get my quotient of 3 with a remainder of 25. Let's interpret our answer. That 3 represents 3 buses that I'm going to need. But what does this 25 represent? It represents 25 extra people who aren't on a bus. Let's go back and look at what they're asking us. If there are 187 people going on the field trip, how many buses will they need to bring? A lot of students want to just jump right to their answer and say that they need to bring 3 buses. But we can't say that because we've got these extra 25 people. If we forget about those 25 people, then they can't go on the field trip. And that would be really stinky for them. So we're going to have to add. We're going to have to add 1 to our quotient of 3 in order to bring 4 buses. Now those 25 people will be able to ride a bus. It just won't be a full bus. And that's really okay. So hopefully these examples have helped you see how sometimes with division problems we really need to focus on what the question's asking. Use this chart and these examples to help you with your homework tonight. Good luck!